Assalamu alaikum. Hello. This is Ahmed Ibrahim. I'm here to talk to you today about an introduction to knowledge management. In this session, I hope I will be able to give you a good introduction about the concept of knowledge management and how you can build a good knowledge management system for your organization. Um, I have been working for 20 years in semiconductor industry, and the last 5 years of my career, I have been assigned the role of knowledge management of my organization, which consists of around 700 engineers. It was a big journey that started with looking into the why we're doing this and ended by implementing many activities that aimed to have knowledge as part of everyday life of every engineer in the organization and to utilize this knowledge in creating value for the organization, which is actually the main objective of this session today to take you throughout a journey showing how you can utilize your organization knowledge in building value for your organization. So, this is a short introduction about myself. I believe we can jump into the topic. So, let's start. I'm starting by a quote taken from one of the Muslim scientists in the history. I will state it in Arabic and then in English. So it says اعلم أن العلم إن لم ينفعك ضرك. And in English it is know that if knowledge does not benefit you, it will harm. The scientist's name is Sufyan al-Thawri. He had been living throughout the period from 716 to 778, and in Hijri calendar, he has been living from 97 to 161 period. And as you can see from this word, that despite that you may have knowledge, but actually it may be not in your side, but it can harm. And throughout the session, we can see how exactly this can be very accurate, even with business and organization. Although maybe what he has been referring to here was referring to some Islamic science, but also this can go and can be still all true for organization knowledge as well. So let's first actually try to list some symptoms that organization may face and try to link this to our today's topic, which is knowledge management. So our first question that if your organization is facing some kind of repeated mistakes that the team is doing, either the same team is doing the same mistake many times, or a mistake that actually happened once in one team and then repeated it on another team. Duplicate effort, you feel that actually your teams are doing the same work more than one time, like for example, building a process or writing a document that actually has been already there for some time. Weak successors, you have some bottlenecks in your experts, and when some expert leaves, you feel that there is nobody to jump into his place and work effectively. Big picture holes that you have a product. The product actually has several aspects, and you believe that there are still aspects that has not been covered by your team or like nobody knows about them. Short memory, like when you're taking some decisions, you find that actually you are doing decisions that are not considering some events that happened long time ago. So actually, you're suffering from a short memory affecting your decision making. Customer issues, you are repeatedly having issues with customer every now and then. Your team's facing customer facing team is struggling with escalations and facing issues, probably responding to the customer because they are not feeling that they are in control of what they knowledge or like the information they have is insufficient to respond to customer issues. Bad decisions, you are taking decisions and then it turns out that these decisions were not good because you're missing some kind of important piece of information that was actually important for the proper decision to be taken. Innovation struggle, you are struggling with innovation, your team is unable to provide innovative solutions for problems they are facing. And you are asking why my team is, although they are smart and they have the capabilities, but they are not able to provide new solutions to these issues. Poor teamwork, you are like saying that actually your team is not properly integrated and they are not communicating well, like they are not helping each other, or like maybe this is not even intended, but you are seeing some symptoms about this by actually seeing that when the teams are communicating to each other, there is a lot of misunderstandings and a lot of conflicts happening because of some preconceptions or some mistakes in understanding between them. You are also maybe facing long onboarding process when somebody new comes to the team. Actually, it takes a long time before being able to run the work effectively and autonomously without the need for consulting any other person in the team. If you are facing one of these issues, these are examples of many of the issues that you may face, which is related to our topic today, and there are others. But if you're facing any of these issues, actually, this may mean that you are already having a poor knowledge management system in place. This actually very clear symptoms that the information and the knowledge in your organization is not properly communicated to the people that needs it when they need it. And this is actually the core of the concept of having a knowledge management system that is required to properly resolve these issues at their very root cause. Okay, before going into the knowledge management, we are going to go through a quick journey about the knowledge itself. So we are starting with what they are calling the DIKW pyramid, and DIKW is short for data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. Actually, it is a model that actually looks at data as a base, which the very primitive piece of information that actually just it's unprocessed facts or figures or symbols, some kind of very raw material of data that has no inherent meaning and context in their own, but when they are actually gathered and collected together and put into a frame of context in a structured way, this actually is started to give it meaning and have some kind of your drawing the line between the pieces of data to have some kind of meaning, to have some pieces of information. Um, Up after that, when you go up, you will find that when you build this information together and put them into a frame of work that seems to understand and interpret these relations in order to answer the question how, you start to say that we have start to build a knowledge of what these data is all about. And once you have this, we have the next stage is actually how you can utilize this knowledge with the judgment and context to make sound decisions that help you to proceed and move further and do good work for your organization. So when we are looking into which of these piece of data or what actually these are trying to answer the questions and which questions are trying to answer, we're going to find that data is almost answering nothing, just some information, discrete pieces of information that has no meaning on their own. Then the information actually seems to answer the question what, where, and when, and how. Actually, so when you have a piece of data that what happened, actually you are starting to gather information. What does this graph mean? What does this? When does this incident happen, and so on? So try to gather this information into context to answer this question: what happened, and where, and when, and how, and who. Then how actually goes when we are going up to the knowledge. We are trying to answer the know-how, the question of the know-how, how this information happened, how this information connected together to form some kind of knowledge that you can use for building decision. And then the wisdom is trying to answer the question why afterwards. If we are looking in the chronological order of these pieces, you are going to find that up to the knowledge, you are looking into the past, trying to analyze and looking and building some kind of information, building some kind of knowledge that you can use in the future to take good decisions and to avoid repeating mistakes that you have in the past. Okay, so this is the DIKW. Also, there is another model for the knowledge actually, which looks at the knowledge as an iceberg. So iceberg, as we know, that has very little in the above the water, but there is a very deep depth of that iceberg down the water. So if we're talking about what is actually we are seeing at the top of the iceberg, which is seen by everybody outside the water, we are talking about explicit knowledge. Explicit knowledge is a knowledge that is already and easily can be articulated and codified, something like documents, something like you have in your wiki, and it's already written in your system that people can access. And this actually like kind of manuals or standards or written flows or something like that. And it has some procedure maybe and theories and so on. And this part of knowledge is about 5 to 15% of the knowledge within your organization. After that, just below the surface, we're having implicit knowledge. Implicit knowledge is actually also having 5 to 15%. And this implicit knowledge is like what we can say that people know by intuitive, like we know how to do these things. Like this is like the workflows, for example. People do the workflows. They are not written anywhere, but everybody in the team knows how to do this kind of thing. So like applying the explicit knowledge may be leading to gaining some experience and building this implicit knowledge about the flows and so on. So the summation of these two pieces of knowledge are from between 10 to 30 percent of the knowledge in your organization. What resides deeply below the water is what we call the tacit knowledge. The tacit knowledge is what actually is residing within the heads of your experts, your team. It is the know-how, how things are being done. It is the experience that people have built over the years. Like this guy who is working in the front of the customer and knows actually that within this the other company there is a culture that these people are would like to communicate this way or that way. It is about like this guy that knows actually when he hears this voice from the machine, this means that the machine is having a problem with this build. It's not written anywhere, but actually some sense that has been developed over time. So this is some kind of information or like knowledge that has been built by practice and experience by your team, and it is difficult to articulate. And sometimes you find that you're described as we know more than we can call, or we know more than we can tell. Like when you ask your expert, he can give an answer, but without asking the question, he does not find the need actually to have this written somewhere or something like that. I recall an example that I heard about tacit knowledge. It's a kind of like not a kind of information that can be written. It is a kind of knowledge that is being um, built upon hearing a question. The expert, when he hears your question, is actually going throughout all the years of experience and bring some piece of this area and another piece from that area and the third piece from the third area, and then he consolidates an answer and gives you that answer. So this is actually what the tacit knowledge is, how hard the tacit knowledge is, and also how hard it is to be extracted from their mind. That's why it is giving a lot of focus on knowledge management and how can this kind of knowledge be transferred throughout the process of management. So this is also another model of knowledge where we went through it quickly, and then we can also talk about some challenges facing the knowledge in your organization. We have been talking about the types of knowledge. Now, what kind of challenges you may have that leads to problems in your organization? Let's say that the first issue is the popularity. We mean by popularity actually that knowledge in many cases is trapped within silos. For example, if you have two teams that you are having two teams and the two teams are doing the same function, but you are like having them because you have a lot of work and you don't want to overload one team. So you have one team that is facing one customer, another team facing another customer. Maybe these teams in one site, or maybe they are overseas. which is more challenging. So, in many cases, you find that the experience that the team is building interfacing with customers may be localized within the same team, and they are not shared among the different teams. So, when one team faces an issue, and that issue is like probably is going to be faced with other customers, not in all cases, all teams are aware of this kind of issues. So that's what we call silos. Silos, like people are actually working in silos. They don't know what is happening outside this. So this is one of the challenges that knowledge management is trying to resolve by introducing tools for the teams working in the organization that can exchange the experience they have faced and make sure that this important and critical knowledge is very well received by all the interested parties within the organization. This is one issue that is actually being faced by knowledge. The other one is culture. In some cases, the organization culture is not encouraging knowledge to change. This is because of a lot of things. One of them, like here, as I highlighted, the knowledge is power. This is one of the culture, bad cultures that may be existing in the organization. People feel value that they hold knowledge, and if actually I give this knowledge to others, it's going to be like as if I'm donating my power to some other people. And this kind of culture is actually needs to be defeated within an organization to make sure that people are not feeling insecure to this level, and they feel that their experience is highly valued, whether it is being exchanged or not. And if it is exchanged, they are going to be more rewarded for that. Another culture, for example, that may be against knowledge exchange is blaming culture. Like when a mistake happens, instead of trying to find a solution and learning from it in the future to make sure that it is not repeated, we are trying to find who did that so that we can blame or punish at some point. This kind of culture actually prevents people from learning from mistakes and actually make people more conservative about reporting mistakes, which is making the issue maybe easier to repeat or happening again with other customers or with other circumstances. And another culture issues that may be leading to knowledge exchange issues that is related to the culture element. The third part is the organization. If you don't have clear policy and tools that can be used for knowledge exchange, definitely you're going to have an issue with knowledge management, and you are going to face issues that similar to the ones that we discussed in the first slide. Also, the lack of accountability, like you don't have some people actually that are responsible for organizing this knowledge and putting it in place and making sure that people who needs it can find it. This is another challenge, of course. Like if it is like okay, we need to make this documentation, but there is nobody assigned to make the documentation. We need to make this session, but nobody is assigned to make the session, or it is not put in the plan or something like that. All these things can lead to knowledge issues because, like, when it is left like that, you're not going to have some accountability, and if it is nobody's responsibility, it is not going to be created as a knowledge asset. And the last one of the issues that we are discussing in this slide is the retrieval. How can people retrieve the knowledge? How can they find the knowledge? Sometimes it is not a problem that the knowledge does not exist in your knowledge base. But many times you have the knowledge in the knowledge base, and the problem happens. And this is because that you don't have a systematic or systemic process for knowledge transfer whenever needed. We are going to cover this also in our frame, like when we discuss the knowledge management framework, how you can build a system that actually makes sure that people, when they are going to explore some knowledge area, they are aware about the knowledge resources that are present about this topic. Okay, so this is also another issue that people need to know and to have a process or methodology to get the knowledge whenever needed. Okay. Okay, let's talk about the knowledge management itself. After discussing all these aspects of knowledge, then let's talk about what is knowledge management about, and how we can best utilize the knowledge. So we are going to add a definition for knowledge management here. Let's say that a knowledge management, we define it as a unconscious, something that you do intentionally, business-driven process. It is like not a kind of like charity thing or like volunteering thing. It is a business driven process. You have a need from the business that actually you need to go and do the organization for knowledge for the benefit of the business. And this process is concerned about all kind of processes that is related to knowledge, starting from acquiring, exchanging, organizing, retaining, maintaining, all this kind of stuff, and using this knowledge. And the ultimate target is to increase the performance, improve the decision making, and increase the business value and any other business um, um, objective that you may have that you can utilize this knowledge in order to do. Of course, you are capitalizing here on the knowledge existing among your expertise, the processes, the documents, and any other knowledge assets within your organization in order to achieve this objective. So this is a simple knowledge management definition that actually looks at this as a business problem to be solved using the resource existing in the organization and targeting to have specific or known business value for your organization. Then we are going to talk about the approaches people do when they are trying to build or like look at the knowledge management concept. There are, as I'm saying, no one size fits all solution. There are two main approaches for knowledge management. The first is a focused approach. And focused approach is actually you are having selecting one of the issues you are having. Like let's remember the first slide that we discussed about the symptoms, and you are selecting one of the issues that you are facing. Like for example, you take customer issues that are increasing, and you would like to put a systems that actually utilize the knowledge you have in order to reduce the customer anger out from this. So you select this specific problem and then do your job to find a suitable KM tool that solves these problems and then start to implement it and adopt it at wider scale. We're going to go through the process of how you are going to select the proper tool for your problem and so on. But let's go to the second approach, which is organizational approach. You are now looking at the organization as a whole, and you are trying to put a knowledge management system that looks at the organization as a whole system. And this actually starts by full understanding of your business units and their interaction, and then you build a complete system of interventions that's trying to address the overall KM requirements. Before moving to the next slide, let's like we can just brainstorm quickly about a couple of pros and cons of each. You can look at the focus as the quick solution for your like pain. There is like if you have an immediate pain and you need a quick fix, then you go to a focused approach. While organizational is going to take time, you need to do the analysis and understand how things are running within your organization and how the interactions are happening, and then you select some kind of framework and based on that you go through pilots and tests and then start rolling off the system. However, we can say that the focus has one issue, which is it is a reactive approach. You are having an issue already in place, and then you are firefighting trying to find a quick solution to resolve. While the organizational is not the same. The organizational is you're taking a preventive or a proactive approach. That proactive approach is trying to prevent issues from happening from the beginning. Of course, sometimes organizational comes when you are having a big issue, but this is not the typical case. Mainly when you are like trying to build a system and you are seeing some benefit from that. Maybe it is not as a kind of reaction to an issue, but you are starting to see that your organization is growing and you need to properly manage your knowledge in it for best performance and good business outcomes. So like these are a couple of points as a pros and cons if you're looking into the focused versus organizational. Some cases people prefer to start by focused in order to just prove the concept that this is adding a value and then they go through organizational. But also going through organizational can adopt similar approach by building some quick wins through some pilots and proof of concept very early in the process of the implementation. Okay, so now we are going to quickly talk about how to build a robust KM framework. Okay, so the first stage actually is start by building a KM strategy, and this strategy actually we are going to talk about in some next slide, but you need to identify what parameters you need to do for successful adoption of KM in your organization, and it should be very well aligned with your business strategy. We're going to go through this quickly in the next slide. Then you're going to once you have set your strategy, how you're going to build your KM system, then you go through the planning phase in order to put the timeline for implementing the KM intervention and start embedding them in your organization flow and operations. The third phase, as I said in my previous slide, you don't jump from planning to implementation. You go through pilots. You just select some few business cases that you need to implement the KM and showcase to the organization and to the management the benefit of implementing these interventions and how they manage to help the teams and help the company overcome some specific business issue and create some kind of value. When we're saying value here, actually, it is not mandatory to be a value that can be measured in money because in many cases, knowledge management is not that does not that have that direct impact on the outcome. You can show that at some point that when you did these interventions, you were able to resolve some issues by on the long term, and you could help seeing that, but you cannot translate immediately the knowledge management activities into money or business outcomes directly. You need to build the links through some mapping between what you did and how that did that impact your business outcome. After the successful implementation of the pilots and tests and your proof of concept for your team and your organization, then you can go through implementing and rolling out the framework at larger scale and update your system processes, put some KPIs, and put also the how you are going to evaluate the success, how successful is your system. Then you go through the operation. You enter the operation mode. Now your system is in place and it is running. You keep monitoring and looking at how it is doing, and based on that, you measure and improve your KM interventions over time, and make sure that the impact on your business is well happening as per plans, or you need to do some calibrations and tweaks to your system. Now we are going to go quickly through the strategy parameters and how you can guide your KM effort for best return of investment. So let's talk about like the first you need to identify your business drivers. What is the business drivers for your KM program? You need to make sure that these drivers are very well aligned with your goals in order to make sure that you are selecting the right activities and the right tools and right processes that can lead to the success of your business and the value you are expecting. Then you go through defining the scope and vision. And here, actually, if your organization is big, and sometimes you decide to focus your knowledge management, for example, in your customer support. Sometimes you decide you are going to do this in your R&D. Some other times you decide you're going to do that in your marketing or something. So you need to define the scope and vision. Sometimes you exclude some functions that are not in the core of your business, like for example, maybe you are going to exclude the human capital or resources team from that, or you are going to exclude the legal team from that. So you need to have a clear scope and vision that actually help the KM team to put the right interventions in the right place. After that, you are going to have the defining the critical knowledge management areas, and the difference between this and the previous one is that here you are working within the KM scope, and within the KM scope you may be having some kind of critical products, critical issues that you need to define as a priority, and these we are going to start with, and these are we're going to be given highest priority when planning your game activities. Does not mean that others will not have, but means that these will be given the highest priority in your planning. Before proceeding, then you need to do some kind of assessment. You need to understand the current state of knowledge resources in your organization. And this kind of assessment aims to understand, like for example, as we said, the organization culture. You do a culture assessment to understand what's happening and how people are exchanging the knowledge and their habits in doing so. What is happening within the teams and the corridors. Also, you're doing some assessment, understanding who are your experts and what they know, and what part of what they know is already articulated or written or something like that. Also, you're doing this kind of assessment to understand the skills needed for your organization and what is the current state of these skills and how your team is being trained on these skills. You can also look into the knowledge resources and your wikis and how they are organized today and whether the information is accessible easily for the people. We are doing this kind of assessment to understand how your knowledge is properly managed today, and in order to understand your starting point and to look into how you are going to improve this in the future. Then, based on these elements, you are going to put a framework. That this framework is aims to identify the interventions you are going to do in order to address the assessment findings and ensure that the required success factors for these activities are in place. And we are going to discuss the framework in details in a few slides, and then you need to make sure that you are properly leading the change, introducing new interventions in the processes and adding some new activities that people would like to do, and adding the new processes to the team will be actually considered as a change, and this change will be needed to properly managed in order to be well adopted by the team. This is the last thing in the strategy. Then moving to the business drivers, we're going to talk about business drivers in a bit of details. So you need to make sure that you are aligning KM effort with your organizational goals, and we're going to talk about some kind of examples for the business drivers. For example, one of them is operations efficiency. To make sure that handy access to your documentation will allow your team to do their work right and fast. So making sure that you are not repeating mistakes and making sure that what you are doing is happening correct from the first time, and you're not spending a lot of time repeating your work or fixing mistakes that happen due to that lack of access to your knowledge resources. Then the next, of course, is customer satisfaction. When earlier projects and experience with customers and the history is accessible to the team, you are able to take the correct decisions and take some decisions or do the work the way the customer like, and make sure that you are strengthening the bond with your customer and gaining their respect and loyalty over time. Value proposition, of course, is another factor, making sure that actually the teams understand what you need to learn to master the work and to produce the quality of product and services that actually can make your product stand in a very well position in the competition, and make sure that your value of what you are delivering as an output is distinguishing your company or organization from other companies. And of course, it will help nurture innovation because when people have access to the knowledge resources, it will help them to have all the input they need to think of solutions to the existing problem. When they have missing information or knowledge, they actually will not be able to think properly or to provide good solutions to the problems they are trying to face. So, if you have any of these, of course, business drivers, you have put them well in place because they will help you to select the proper way of organizing your knowledge for better achieving these business drivers. You can have one or many or all of these or others, but these are examples of what business drivers can be for knowledge management to start from. Then you're looking at the knowledge resource assessment. Well, some people call it a KRE in literature. And you need to understand the current state of the knowledge. The first thing you're looking at is experience. Who knows what? And what are the existing needs to transfer people experience to others? As I said, in many cases, you find that when an expert resigns, you are like going back in time 10 years since he joined actually the team because there is no written information, what is experience at all. So you need to make sure that your expert's experience is properly moving. So you need to understand what experience is within your organization and understand where it stands and the current state of its transfer to others. Of course, the documentation, how far your knowledge is codified, and how this knowledge is being accessed by your team members, what needs to be done to improve this kind of documentation effort or access to it. The workflows, how implicit knowledge actually is transferred in your organization. These workflows, who knows these workflows? Is all the team knowing it, or you have every piece of the flow is known by one member? When that member is not here, then everything is going not to work well. So you need to understand and how this actually norms or like workflows being transferred between people. How people know about this mystery work that is not documented anywhere. So how this is happening is to transfer it, and how can it be documented, how much of it is documented and how it can be documented, because documenting workflows is not an easy task in all cases, but sometimes with some tricks or some like sessions or some mind maths or some flowcharts, you can put some foundation for these workflows to be captured in a good extent. Talent, you need to understand your talent and who actually is your golden team members, and actually how you can retain these guys. Are they satisfied today? Are there any risks that they may leave you in the very short term? What kind of means you are putting in place to retain your talent and making sure that your competitors are not going to take them in the first opportunity in the market? So this is also some kind of element that you need to do when you're doing assessment to understand your talent of the organization, how you can retain them, and the relationships. The relationships is a very important part of the assessment because in many cases, knowledge is residing at the interface between teams. A lot of teams that are interacting with each other, the interaction between the teams is not documented. You find that the focal points in the communication are the most knowledgeable people about how this work is being delivered between the teams. And when some key person in this kind of organization is leaving and without any proper documentation of flow, then you find that you have lost information. Another thing in relationships is actually when you have weak interaction between teams that are strongly correlated in knowledge resources. So when team actually is having an issue and they could solve, then actually the other team is not aware about that. When some team member that has an issue and some other they couldn't solve, they don't know where they should go to seek help. So building the network of relationship between the teams visually, so that you can look at it and understand how your teams are working together, helps you to put some kind of interventions that make sure that the knowledge is properly exchanged between them. This is the assessment. Of course, maybe some people is going to put some other elements here, but these are the core elements of the assessment. I believe also one of the elements is the culture, but it is not written here. Knowledge transfer elements. Oh yeah, what actually how knowledge flow among people. Like here, we are going to talk about how the flow of knowledge between people or among people. So we have typically a knowledge owner and a knowledge seeker, and we have the knowledge transfer. The required is to transfer knowledge between the owner and the seeker. In order to build a proper or like a good system for knowledge exchange, we need to understand how knowledge transfer happens. So what happens in the beginning is that the knowledge, we have two paths, in fact, for the transfer. The first path, what we call the communicate path, which is actually direct discussion between knowledge owner and seeker, is what it takes to make the transfer happening between the two entities. The other path, what we call the first one, we call the communicate. The other one we call document or something like that. So it starts by documenting what they have in mind into some kind of document, and then this documentation or like this kind of writing the knowledge in some kind of form of written. It is being synthesized. By synthesis, we mean converting the text that has been used in different documents into some useful, well organized resource that people can use for future reference. Like for example, a guideline, a checklist, best practice document, a learning lessons document, something like that. So this is what we mean here. The document at the beginning may be just a transcript for an interview, from an interview, or just a document coming out after the project, like for documenting post-mortem or something like that. Then you are going to move this information or this knowledge that is coming discreetly from different documents into a best practice or into a guideline that people can use systematically in the future for referring to this knowledge as a kind of holistic approach. Then the third part is the find and reuse. And find and reuse is a very important part of this because, like, if you have a document in your system and the document in your system nobody knows about it and nobody when and where it is today and when it is being should be used, then your system has a flow which is actually you have a symmetry of document instead of having a repository that people can use for reference. So you need to build a system that makes sure that people, when they need knowledge, they know where to find and when to find it. Okay, for example, when they're starting a project, there should be have a milestone or like a step that actually goes into the repository and brings all the documents related to the topic that you're going to do. And of course, in order to do that, you need to have kind of organization that allows them to find which documents you need for this kind of specific project and have access to it directly. There are two, of course, kinds of operations happening here. The push, what we call push, and push is when knowledge owner is actually going to push the knowledge he has to the system, and there is the pull. The pull is actually when the knowledge seeker is going to request or try to get the knowledge from the system. And by the way, pulling is not like maybe the pulling happening by the knowledge seeker is what is going to drive the knowledge owner to give the push. It's not like always voluntarily the knowledge owner is going to push the knowledge. Sometimes in many in a lot of cases it is a responsibility for the knowledge seeker to try to pull the knowledge from whoever knows it or wherever the document has this kind of knowledge. Okay, this is a quick overview about how the knowledge flow. And then we are going to talk about how to build a proper system to manage these kind of activities that is needed, like these elements of the knowledge transfer between people. So we are going to talk about like for any successful intervention you are going to have in your system, you need to have four elements. The first one is people. You need to define accountability for this process in order to make sure that what you need is being done, what is needed to be done is being done. It is not kind of defining a process and then say, okay, you guys, you have this process. When you need to do this, go and do it. No, you need to say when this is being going to be needed, you have this person to do it for this kind of specific activity or specific problems that you are trying to resolve. So we have people element that needs to define accountabilities toward this activity in order to make sure that things are happening. And this, of course, the roles requires that you are following up on what is happening and making sure that these people are doing their job. Process, of course, you need to have a kind of systematic way to be used for this kind of intervention. When you are defining that, okay, we are going to do this kind of let's assume that we're talking about communities of practice, COPs. You need to have a process how these COPs is going to work. When actually a question is being asked, how people is going to be reflecting the answers to some kind of knowledge assets so that people can work on that. You need to define a process how these COPs are managed. Who is the subject matter expert? How to define him, and when he's actually what amount of time is expected to be put in? What is the time needed, for example, to get an answer? And if no answer is happening, what is going to happen? All these kind of things are part of the process element, and you need to be done. Then the technology element, actually, where with the tools that you're going and the platforms you are going to use for facilitating the access to this. For example, the same community practice we are talking about. For example, maybe you are going to use a forum, which is like a very typical in cases of community practice, or you're deciding that you're going to use, instead of a forum, you're going to use a space, Google Chat Space, or a Team site, something like that. So you're going to use this community of practice way. So you're defining the IT tool and the platform you're going to use, and it should be something handy and not too artificial. Like if you would like to use the tool, you have to go to the library, or you have to go to some other platform. If it is very well integrated within their daily business suite, it will be very good. And that's why technology elements should be very carefully selected and discussed with your IT department, because sometimes okay, you have issues, and you have issues with your technology element, and the IT team says, okay, this is a knowledge management thing. I don't look into it because I'm just focusing on my tools. So you need to make sure when you select the technology, you're selecting it very well, so that it is properly integrated within your IT framework. And then the last element is the governance. The governance is the policies and guidelines used to ensure that your KM activities are achieving their targets. As I said, like you are making sure that the people who are doing the job are doing the role. You're putting some kind of training for them, making sure that the tools they need are available for them, putting the policies that actually govern the discussion in the forum, making sure people respect each other. You make sure that the output of the community practice is reflected in your internal processes and learned lessons and best practice documents and so on. So you put some kind of policies how things are happening the proper way. By having all these pillars, you are building, most probably, you're building a successful knowledge management system that tries to take into consideration all the success factors for a successful system. Okay, let's take an example, putting the pieces together of the previous couple of slides. So we have discussed, like, we have four elements for the communication between the knowledge owner and seeker, and we have four rules, or like four framework elements existing. So if we're looking at the discuss, for example, element, you based on your survey and business driver and all the kind of stuff that you have done in your homework, you decided that you're going to adopt the processes of communities and peer assist. Peer assist actually when with being used when a team is entering a new project and would like to consult a team with experience in the very same project. So they trying to do a peer assist, asking for some people who have been involved in this project before to give them a session or discussion about what they faced in this project and how they could help doing that. And then also the process, you are going to adopt a process of baton passing. Baton passing is actually the other way around. When the team is finishing a project and they need to transfer the knowledge they gained in this project, and they feel that they have gained a lot of new insights they would like to share with other teams, so they are doing the baton passing session or something like that. And also, of course, you have the communities of practice. So you are selecting these processes for your framework that actually you're going to put in place in your framework. You have the people to do this. You need the facilitators of the meetings. You need the community leaders to be the person defined for this kind of processes. You select the technologies for forums or spaces. You need some people directory to specify who's expert in what and how people can reach out the people for discussion and put them in your community of practice leader positions and so on. And of course, you put some policies and training for your team. And similarly, for other elements, for example, the processes for the documentation, you need to have some interviews with experts. You sometimes do the after action review, which is a post-mortem. And then you need for this, like, to have some blogs, some lessons portal, some video recording software to be able to record your interviews. The governance here is you need to embed your post-mortem in your process, because like you need to make sure after each project you are learning from it and you are adding your learning into some kind of documentation. And of course, you need to have a retention strategy for these documents. And for census, you may have some kind of process for knowledge asset creation. By knowledge asset, we mean a guideline, a checklist, a lesson, a learned lesson, or something like that. So you are going to have some process for creating these knowledge assets, and of course, you need to have subject matter experts supervising the creation of this process. And of course, you need also to need people who are taking care of the knowledge base to put these pieces of knowledge in their places. The technologies like knowledge bases week is important and so on. And of course, for governance, you need for the subject matter experts some succession planning so that you make sure that when this expert is not there, there's some other people to take care of the assets creation and maintenance and so on. And also, of course, you need to make some audits on these assets to make sure that they are current and there are no missing assets that needs to be built in the future. For find and reuse, you need to make sure that you are adopting the processes like, for example, knowledge planning or before action review, which is a process before the project to make sure that you have access to the proper knowledge you need and you have revised all the learned lessons from previous projects before entering this project. And here, actually, you need to make sure that the research system and technical system are in place to make sure that you are not going to search for a needle in a stack of a lot of things. And maybe you need some rules here to be defined for, like example, be able to put the tagging and to do analysis of the documents and put tags into it and so on. And you need to make sure that you're embedding your before action reviews and reviewing your analytics reports, for example. So this is an example. Of course, when you build your system, maybe it is going to be a little bit different, but just showing at the end of the exercise how your exercise will be. Okay. After doing this, then finally you're going to need to do some measurement of how you are doing. So you are going to define some metrics for this. So metrics are categorized into four groups. What we call the first is the activity. Activity is some set of quantitative metrics. You are just measuring the interaction with the system, the amount of output coming out from these activities or tools or interventions, how many times you are doing meetings or you are calling for sessions or something like that. This is something kind of activity to make sure that it is alive and there are some activities happening there. That just you don't have a name of a community of practice, but there is nobody's going and asking or nobody's adding value to it. The second is the performance. You're making sure that what you have planned for, like when you introduce this intervention, is happening. Like I planned for example, having less mistakes by my team or something like that. When we did that, so you are measuring the performance coming out from this. You are measuring that people are interacting and they are learning from that and so on. The third is the impact. Impact, the difference between impact and the performance. That impact measures the impact on the business and how the business performance has been improved by these interventions. So you can link the interventions you have with some kind of benefit to the business. Like you can measure a better customer satisfaction, or like you increase new patents that you have generated, or you can see some kind of operation efficiency. You are delivering more projects in less time, and so on. So this is kind of impact. And the last one is the maturity measures and metrics. And this actually measures how your KM system is growing and evolving. And it also can be measured how well the culture is improving with time. So this is a kind, like it was a trial from my side to go through the all knowledge management aspects and how to build a knowledge management system in your organization. And of course, I will be open and happy to answer any questions that may come from you after watching this. Also, how we can implement the interventions for a specific case and specific issues that you are facing within your organization. All these kind of stuff can be discussed afterwards. I would like to thank you for your time watching this, and looking forward for communication with you in the future to look into how we can implement these concepts into the specific need you have in your organization. Thank you.